Hey, what's up YouTube? This is Sir Ramadan here, and I'm bringing to you today a Metalfoes Kozmo deck profile that I actually took to locals today. Granted, it was pretty small, there were only a couple of people, I believe it was 7. But it did pretty well. I actually went undefeated and I took first. The deck's really explosive, it's capable of making a lot of different plays and ending with a wide variety of boards, and I just had a lot of fun playing it. I didn't really have a lot of time to test it. I kind of just played around with it. Tinkered with ratios and certain like tech choices, but this is ultimately the build I ran. It's not necessarily perfect by any means objectively, but it's a build that I feel like it worked pretty well for me. So without further ado, let's get started. So starting off with the Cosmos, we're going to be doing ships first. The entire idea of the deck is to summon ships and then float down with Metalfoes effects and then just generating more advantage. So we have one Dark Destroyer, it's at 1, obviously. 3 Forerunner. Now this is a build that focuses on like summoning these ships. The thing with this is it's pretty cool because it can be pendulum summoned, and not a lot can really beat over this thing. It's also untargetable, which is really cool. It allows you to access things like Slip Rider really easily, and obviously you can access any of your pilots, so this card's actually a really good card. Next we play one Dogfighter. Dogfighter is actually cool because it can serve as a defensive wall, generating tokens which can be popped off Metalfoes. You can use the tokens to fuse because they're normal monsters. It's pretty cool. And we have 3 Slip Rider. You obviously want to place 3 Slip. Pop your own combination, pop your opponent's back row, pop Kozmo Town. It hits a lot of things. It's just an overall really good card. It also makes Infinity, which is really nice. We played. That's actually it for all these ships. Getting ahead of myself here. These are the monsters that you basically want to pendulum summon and then basically just use to OTK, and then use also to generate advantage. Then we play one copy of Cosmo Dark Lady. She's extremely good in just today's format because monster effects are ever so prevalent, and she just allows you to get a free negate on board. Her plus Infinity is just really strong, and a lot of boards decks can't really break that without burning through a lot of resources. So she's really good. I played one Wicked Witch. I feel like actually Good Witch would have been better today because I didn't really see any True Draco like I thought it would, and people don't really play Zero at my locals. Obviously, because a deck like this could top. But yeah, she's good because she's like indestructible. But I actually played against certain things that like were able to deal with either non-targeting or non-destruction removal. I played Gishkis round 1 against my good friend, and Zeal Gishkis cannot or does not target or really destroy anything, so she didn't really actually serve as that good of a wall. I probably would have played Good Witch instead because Good Witch at least baits out effects like things like Crystal Wing, things like any real quick effects. Like they have to respond to Good Witch. Like she requires an immediate answer, and if she goes through, then many monsters have low defense values, so she can just run over them pretty easily, and it's a good out to a lot of like big boss monsters. We play the one Farm Girl because she's Farm Girl. She enables OTKs, extremely good. Actually, in that same match against Gishkis, I was doing a board of Zeal, Mound of the Bound Creator, and I don't remember all the Gishkis, so excuse me, but it's the one that searches. It's like 800 attack or something. Like it basically searches for Zeal. Like I summoned Slip Rider, crashed into Zeal, and summoned Farm Girl, attacked over the monster, and then got my search off. So that's pretty cool. I played double Strawman. Strawman's actually probably like one of the best pilots in this deck because he enables you to recycle your resources, mostly your ships, and then you can re-destroy them and just get more advantage. And then during the end phase, he allows you to just go off with this guy right here, Tin Can. Only play one. It's not Tin Can Turbo, and he's like extremely easily searched because any ship or Cosmo Town basically nets you this because you destroy the ship, get Strawman, Strawman summons the ship right back, and then you get this during the end phase. So he's really, really easy to tutor, and you really actually don't want to see him in your opening hands too much because he can't be pendulum summoned. But he's still a tank hand, so he's really nice. The other reason I want to play one is actually I decided to cut Call of the Haunted from the deck. I found that Call of the Haunted kind of just it was more of a brick than what I needed to like it didn't allow me to go where I needed to go in terms of making combos. So I'd rather just have more combo pieces or more searching to be able to get where I need to go. But obviously if you resolve Tin Can and reveal Dark Lady, Slip Rider, and Dark Destroyer, you're in a good position. Which, you know, a lot of people aren't nobody's ever really happy to add any of those monsters to your hand. So that's it for pilots. I believe it is 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 pilots. Yeah, that's about right. Then we're going on to the Metalfoes engine, which is pretty self-explanatory. They're there to pop your ships, pop your Cosmo Town. We play 3 of basically each of the normal monster Metalfoes. And I'll explain exactly why I went with this specific ratio. So my idea was to keep the scale ratios like the same in terms of low scales and high scales. So I have 6 and 6 here. It makes it so that like if it makes it so I can activate things like Painful Decision and keep the numbers relatively balanced. In addition, I didn't run Bismagir because A, he can't be pendulum summoned, and B, it throws off that balance. And I ran Summoner's Art, and obviously Volflame's the only Metalfoes target here. So like that automatically makes searching high skills more accessible, I guess. Whereas you want a lot of the 1 scales, and you kind of don't want to like draw too many of the same scale, because completing the scale is really important in terms of summoning your ships or just being able to pendulum summon at all, which is still one of the best mechanics of the deck. I didn't cut any of these down to like 2 or anything because I wanted Painful to be as live as possible, so these automatically had to be 3-ofs. Simply because I didn't want to see a second Painful and have it just be straight up dead. So I didn't cut any of these to 2. I think it was fine. And also, I wanted to maximize seeing the Metalfoes because if you don't see the Cosmos, it's not as big of a deal if you have a bunch of Metalfoes because you can just do Metalfoes plays, which is really nice as well. So it's a good fallback contingency plan that I think worked out really well. And you obviously want to see them just so you can pop your ships, pop your Cosmo Town, generate advantage, and make these explosive boards. So that's 12 Metalfoes. The final 5 monsters that I play are the, I guess, the other facilitators, playmakers. 3 of, I think, probably the most helpful monster in the entire deck is 3 Balbaboon. This is like a last second addition to the deck, but it was probably the best. It was so clutch in being able to just put the Metalfoes spells and traps I kept drawing into in the back on the bottom of my deck. I ran a 49 card deck, specifically, not that number, but like specifically more than a 40 card deck to minimize the chances of seeing Metalfoes spells and traps. But in the supposed off chance that I drew into them, which wasn't an off chance at all because I drew them every single freaking turn, first turn, this would help fix hands. And getting access to a rank 3 play is also really nice. It might eat up your normal summon more often than not, but like this deck isn't heavily reliant on it. And if you're able to fix your hands this way, like you can get access to another scale, you can get like a Cosmo monster that you need to like pop combination or do other shenanigans, and making a rank 3 play is also really nice. Even without Zoo, you don't need MX Saber Invoker with Balbaboon, guys. You don't need it, but it is good. And the final 2 monsters we play are what I think some would consider a questionable choice, but I found it to be pretty good throughout the day. Clifford Scout and Monolith. Granted, I didn't see it as often as I did in playtesting, but this makes it so that you don't have to use Slip Rider for your Infinity play. The way I wanted to do it was make sure that I could use it like with the Strongman combo to access Tin Can, so I can get more plays on board like with the Cosmos. This is just like an easy way, a searchable way to get out Cyber Dragon Infinity, basically no problem. The only downside with this is that it eats up one of your Metalfoe like scale effects. But honestly, if you can get Cyber Dragon Infinity, it's not really that big of a deal. As long as like you can't, as long as you don't like decelerate your plays too much. This is only 2 spots in your deck. It's not that big of a deal, especially because you're running, or I decided to run more than a 40 card build. Card economy wise, this is actually excellent because this can still be used in a pinch with Cyber Dragon Infinity, and this is never really that dead of a draw unless you draw this first. And it's searchable off Summoner's Art, so this was good. This was I could see if you decided to not play this, but I personally just love this all the engine. So that's it for the monsters. It was 31 monsters. Moving on to the spells. We have 3 copies of probably the biggest, I guess, playmaker in the deck is Kozmo Town. If you are ever short on scales and open with this and a bunch of ships, you can always just recycle them back and then draw cards. Popping this is also just a free plus. Plus because you get your search off of it, obviously. And then even the recursion of the of banishing or banished Cosmos is really helpful here because you can always recycle, like you always like add, say, a tin can back and like shuffle it back in or something else. So it's always nice to be able to like cycle through your deck even faster. Speaking of cycling and like searching, we played 2 copies of Terraforming to search it out. I think this was a fine number. I would probably only run 4 if it was like a strict 40 card build, but because it was 49, I upped it to 2 just to see it more often. But clogging with multiples also isn't ideal, so I decided to just go with this ratio, and it did fine. I actually never really drew into multiples, so that was pretty cool. That's one of the ratios that you could tinker around with. Next, I played 3 copies of Summoner's Art. This searches your Rollflame and your Scout. So you either get Infinity or complete your scale, or you get a big body on board if you have like a Steel in or something. So yeah, this is really nice. I like running it as a 3 of just because if you're running more cards, then you kind of want to just have as many searchers as possible that aren't dead. So this might be a little contradictory to what I said like at first, but it makes more sense when you look into it. 2 painful decision. It's a hard once per turn, so it can be dead in multiples, and it has a high probability of being dead because you do need a valid target and your like additional valid targets in your deck to send it off. But this gets your play started, and it's the most versatile searcher because you can fetch for whatever you need at the time. So that's always nice. The other cards I played are 1 E-Telly. This gets like a lot of things. And I actually didn't really... I don't even think I drew this once, surprisingly. But this gets you your Strawman, your Tin Can, your Farm Girl. And this gets you your Steel and your Silvered if you really want like another fusion material or something. E-Telly is just E-Telly. It's at 1. It's good. Play 2 of Miss T because it pops your combination, it pops your town, and it pops problematic back row. This deck can't really afford to lose its engine cards to things like Twin Twisters, so I'd rather just opt for MST and be able to like facilitate plays or stop plays on my opponent's field. I went for this over Cosmic Cyclone because I want the versatility of being able to pop my own stuff. Should I not happen to see like the engine cards that I need. Oops. So the last part of the deck is Metalfoes Fusion, Full Metalfoes Fusion, Combination, and 2 counter. This is really good, I feel, as like the ideal ratio for me. Double counter does come up at times because being able to have like an extra one, like if you need to like banish one from grave to complete a scale, like if somebody outs the scale like with Twin Twisters or something is really nice, or just having a bunch of bodies on board is also really good. Full Metalfoes Fusion did come up. Being able to fuse in the battle phase or making Alcahest on your opponent's turn is always nice. I love Alcahest. This lets you travel through your deck a little bit faster and basically go for your fusion plays. It turbos because if you make Mythilium can bounce your own scale and you get more pops and get more searches. So that's really good. And then combination is probably one of the most valued pieces in the deck, simply because you pop it with Slip Rider and it's really good. I didn't want to run it in multiples because I didn't want to clog too much, even though I ended up clog. I saw these two way too much, but I digress. So the ratio was 31 monsters, I believe. Yeah, 15 spells and 3 traps. So a 49 card deck. It ended up working pretty well for me. Moving on to the extra deck. Token for a Dogfighter, and I love penguins, so whoops. That's just me. Do the fusions first. It's only the Metalfoes fusions, so 1 Orichalc because pushing through damage is nice. This never really came up actually today, but it's always good to have in your toolbox. 2 Mythrillium. You can recycle them with each other, so I don't think 3 is needed. Extra deck space is relatively tight, surprisingly. In terms of like what could come up, you want to optimize space, obviously. So Mythrillium's good. She bounces your own scales actually a lot, as opposed to opposing cards, but she can do a lot of things. Next, we play 1 Adamante. Sometimes he's the only thing you can make, and you want your fusion in the graveyard. That way you can recycle it back and draw a card if you need like to finish your extra piece, or if you have nothing else to make and you kind of have weak bodies on the board that you kind of don't want to get run over. You kind of do have to play Adamante. And then 1 Alcahest. Alcahest is Alka best. He steals your opponent's stuff and just ruins their time. So that's the 5 fusions, and then the 10 XCs are in descending order of rank. 1 Flare Metal and 1 Big Eye. Big Eye came up. I stole an Ultimate Conductor Tyranno with this thing after baiting its effect out. Because I was able to like double counter for double Volflame, and then fuse with them after you flip them face down, then bring these back out, pendulum summoning them. So this is an awesome card. Next up, play the Nova Infinity package because Slip Rider and the Cliff Forts. So it's always nice. 3 negates, always cool. And then the rank 4 toolbox in Castel, Dweller, and Tornado Dragon. Tornado Dragon did come up once today to pop him out of the Bound Creator. Dweller came up in the Dino matchup, and Castel I didn't actually make, but it's still like one of the best cards for its spot. And then finally for the rank 3s, we played 1 Break Sword. He pops your ships to pop your opponent's cards if it gets that grindy. So you just generate advantage while they lose a card. Grand Pulse to pop your own combination or pop your opposing back row. It's really good to make off Balbaboons. And then Levier, which I never went into, but it's good for cycling Strawman. So like you can basically summon it and then get 2 more monsters. It's kind of dumb. You can also get Tinkin if you really want in a pinch. If you had to tag him out, like if he was forced out. Moving on to the side deck. This was kind of thrown together a bit, but I actually think it was fine. I just didn't have to access all of it. We'll play 2 copies of Amorphage Sloth. It's basically like Domain if you pendulum it. It just sits there and it's annoying. If you don't really lock yourself out with it either, because you can always pop it and then pendulum summon it back out. So it is really annoying to deal with. But I never really went into it because I didn't really play things that relied on the extra deck. I played Gishkis, what is it? True King Dinosaurs and Lightsworns. So none of those were very heavily reliant on the extra deck. So I didn't really play this. But I would imagine that it is a very good side deck card if used properly, and it has done work online. I played 2 copies of Denko Sekka because I knew that there was going to be a Paleo player, Volcanic Paleos to be exact. I was looking forward to that matchup to side these in, but I never actually got the chance to. Shoutouts to Battles of Legend, Light's Revenge for making this much easier to access. I played a couple of hand traps in Max C and Double Ghost Ogre. I was expecting to see Dragonic Diagram-esque builds with mostly just True Dracos, like pure True Draco. But never came up, so I never sided them in. It's really hard to side out pieces because most of them are engine pieces, so you kind of have to side out consistency cards, which kind of sucks, but it is somewhat necessary depending on the situation. And Maxi is just Maxi. It's extremely good. Played 2 Kaijus. We don't want to play too many Kaijus because you don't want to draw into multiples. It's not a deck that can really afford to like lose a slot too much. Very good going second because you're basically starting off with the same number of combo pieces, and if you have something to deal with their board, then at least you can go unhindered. And if you really wanted to, you can bounce back to your hand with like a Mythilium. So that is something to note. We played board wipes as well. We played Regeki and Dark Horse. These got sided in a lot, going second, because popping your own ships isn't bad, and then clearing away for Farm Girl also isn't bad. Dealing with threats, making it so that they can't really do anything to hurt your board is very appreciated. We had the 3rd copy of MST, going second against things that I feared would play a lot of back row or anti-spell fragrance specifically, but this never really got sided in. I didn't really play back or heavy decks, so the 2 in the main deck were fine. The last 2 cards that I played were 2 copies of Different Dimension Ground, also shoutouts to Battles of Legend of Light's Revenge. The 1-turn defissure is really, really nice because it just stops a lot of decks. Like things like ABC, Lightsworn, I guess BA, Infernoids, like Shadalls, like just a bunch of random stuff that could come up. Metalfoes does tend to have some like random things thrown in there, but I feel like this was a good card because it doesn't hinder me a whole lot, and it is a very, very strong card. So that will be it for the Kozmo Metalfoes, or Cosmophos, or Cosmophos. Hope you guys enjoyed. It's a really fun explosive deck. I really do recommend. Yeah, these are out of order from the beginning, I know. But I would recommend trying this deck out. It's explosive, it's fun, it's pretty fast. It requires a little bit of setup, but it can really, really just OTK out the wazoo. And it's just so much fun. I haven't had this much fun playing a combo heavy deck in a long, long time. But until next time, see you guys.